WrestleMania 38 Night 2 is now in the books. Welcome to my review of the show. Last night with WrestleMania 38 Night 1 saw a really fun show capped off by Stone Cold Steve Austin's return and presumably his final match, depending on what he wants to do in the future. We can't see the future, against Kevin Owens, and the crowd went nuts and it was a great time. Tonight, the main event was Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar for the unified Universal and WWE Championships. They were unifying the titles tonight, and they hyped it up as the biggest WrestleMania main event of all time, right? Or that's what they billed it as, and it absolutely was not. Now, there are people that have been texting me tonight saying that Roman Reigns may have actually been legitimately hurt by Brock Lesnar putting the Kimura on him, that he may have separated his shoulder. That's what they're saying. I don't know if this is true. I don't know if that's the case. If Roman Reigns really was hurt and they called an audible, I feel like they could have come up with better audibles than that. But at the same time, if he really was concerned and he couldn't do any more moves, if he really did have a separated shoulder, I could understand them going home early. But unfortunately, whether or not you say it was a legit injury or not, this was still one of the weaker WrestleMania main events of all time. And they hyped it up as the biggest, and it wasn't even close. The match went 12 minutes. Brock was doing some pretty cool suplexes in the match. They even had a really cool spot where Heyman is like begging to take him back, and then Roman speared him to the guardrail, or the barricade. That barricade spear move is totally overused. It's completely overused. We see it at every major pay-per-view, it seems, and it's kind of played out. But for Roman to do it, it was fine. And the match was pretty much what you would expect. Lots and lots of like F5s and spears and, special moves. The disappointment was that when Brock got him in the Kimura, Roman reached the ropes thanks to Heyman pushing the ropes in. Now, after this, they went right to the finish where Brock went for the F5 again, reverse, Roman speared him, 1, 2, 3. The match they had at WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans, it took 7 F5s for Roman to go down, and Roman speared Brock like 5 times in that match. In this match, he didn't spear him as much. It was not epic. I was told earlier in the week there would be blood in this match, and I didn't get any blood, but we were told to expect that, and there was no blood. And it wasn't just that. The match did not feel epic in any way. It felt like a big disappointment. Like, the beginning of the match was fine. It was working to be a good match. Like, as the match was progressing, it was getting better and better and better. They were telling more stories. Brock took off the gloves, right? And you would think that when Brock takes the gloves off, that would lead to, Roman Reigns getting beaten up or whatever. But that did not happen. And I think that they were probably planning on doing. The blood, and then if they really did call an audible, they may have canceled that, because I don't know. It just the fact that Brock took off his gloves tells me that they were going to do the blood spot, where Brock like elbows him in the head to bust him open, like they did at WrestleMania 34, and they didn't do it. So I would believe he might be injured. He was holding his shoulder when he was lifting up both belts, but overall, big disappointment, big letdown. This was hyped up. I knew it wasn't going to be the best match in Mania history because there's been so many great ones, or even the best main event. But at least have it be a good match, and it wasn't even that. It was an average match and nothing special, especially compared to the previous 2 matches. The 31 and 34 matches I thought were a lot better. Besides that, there are other highlights of the show. Well, first of all, the show opened with a triple threat tag team match with Randy Orton and Riddle, the Street Profits, and the Alpha Academy, and that was actually a good match. Everybody worked hard. We saw that awesome freaking Montez Ford RKO, and then Gable got caught in Randy's RKO out of nowhere, and it was a really fun opener. Bobby Lashley and Omos was interesting because Bobby Lashley beat Omos clean 1, 2, 3 in the middle with a couple of spears, and it really feels like the match was actually not as bad as I had thought, and it really as I thought it was going to be going in. And it really feels like they've given up on Omos. I think they might be done with him right now for the time being. He's clumsy, and he's not, like, he's got a cool voice and a great look. But outside of that, there's not much there. He either needs more training or for them to cut bait on him, because I don't see where they go with him from now on. Like, the mysticalness of his character is pretty much over. Johnny Knoxville and Sami Zayn, anything goes. That match was awesome. This was hilarious. We saw the entire Jackass crew show up. Party Boy was there. Everyone except Steve-O, and obviously Bam Margera, who wasn't in the last movie, but that whole crew. But we saw, like, you know, the guys in the front row. We saw Wee Man, Party Boy. I mentioned that earlier. All comedy. The giant mousetrap. Kind of a botch finish, but still a cool idea. They had the big slapper. There was a lot of people. I think some hardcore wrestling fans are going to trash on that match. But it was exactly what it was supposed to be. Just comedy. And it worked. Then they had the four-way women's match for the tag belts, the women's tag belts. Sasha and Naomi, Zelina, Carmella, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Shayna Baszler, and Natalya. They tried, but the match was a bit of a cluster muck. It wasn't terrible or anything like that. It wasn't like, you know, I was offended, especially with Carmella being in there. Like, you would think they would do some botches, but it wasn't that bad. It was just kind of there. Like, it kind of felt like a filler match, to be honest. You know, and the girls did try. It's just, what can you do? And that would, of course, end with Banks and Naomi winning the titles. Now, then we had the best match of the night, Edge versus AJ Styles. AJ was one of the opponents that Edge wanted to face when he came back in 2020. The match, I thought, was fantastic. They told a great story, took their time, lots of good near falls. Damian Priest showed up, and that distracted AJ for just a moment to allow Edge to spear him on the way down from the phenomenal forearm, and that was the pinfall win. So we have two matches ending with spears on this show, which again tells me that this finish may have been changed, because it wouldn't make sense to end both matches the same way. Yes, I know it's their finisher, but it doesn't matter. And then so Priest and Edge pose together. So it's one of those things where, like, there's a rumor that Edge was going to have a new stable, and this could be it right here with Priest being in it. Again, really good match. Not a 5-star classic or anything like that, but it was a really good match. They announced the attendance was going to be 78,453, and that's obviously a fake number. There were actually people I know for a fact that were there that got moved down to, like, the floor seats because of how many empty seats there were there. No, the building was definitely not full. I mean, they sold like 97,000 tickets once for that building, so it definitely wasn't even close to being full. It was probably closer to 60,000, maybe 50,000. It still looked good, though. The building looked good, but neither night was sold out. Sheamus and Rich Holland against Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods was supposed to happen the previous night. The match went 1:44. Not only did Rich Holland win, the guy who injured Big E, but he also won clean, and it was just, well, kind of clean. And it was, well, kind of. I mean, it was the bro kick, you know, behind the ref's back. He was still legal, and Rich Holland won. This felt like it would have probably gone on longer had it actually been given the time. I feel like they should have probably put it on Raw instead of putting it on here. This was a bit of a letdown. Undertaker, first of all, I should mention, Taker comes out really for no reason. Like, they congratulate him, but the other Hall of Famers didn't come out. It was just Taker, and I thought that was pointless because we saw him last night. Triple H coming out, though, and putting his boots in the middle of the ring, like, that was a very emotional thing for him as a character and as a man to do, because he is retired. But it did it made me wonder, like, damn, he ate up 20 minutes of this show. They could have given that to maybe this match or another match. You know, then we had the big surprise of the evening, Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory. Pat McAfee and Austin Theory had a really, really fun match. McAfee is, without question, a prodigy. He could work. I mean, it's funny that McAfee and Logan Paul both seem more natural in the ring than Ronda. I find that interesting to me. But what happened was McAfee wins, right? And with a roll-up. And then Vince McMahon challenges Pat McAfee. And Vince looked pretty old. He still looked pretty jacked for a guy in his 70s, but he still was pretty old. And they actually worked the match. And then, you know, Theory kept attacking McAfee from behind, and and wound up ending with basically he kicks a football into McAfee's ribs and then just pins him. Very, very lackluster. Then Steve Austin comes out. The crowd explodes. Hits the stunner on freaking Vince. Hits the stunner on Austin Theory, who sold it amazingly. Of course, before he stunned Vince, he gave him the beer. That was after the Theory stunner. And then McAfee comes in the ring. They share a beer. He gets stunned. So he got over, waving to the crowd one last time before he left. So that right there, could have been a great, it was a great moment, and it's like the end of the Vince Austin rivalry or whatever, even though that shit ended years ago. And then we get to our main event, which I already talked about. Big letdown, definitely not what I was expecting. There's talk of maybe he was really hurt. I do not know, but this match was a huge disappointment and very anticlimactic, and nobody liked it. So that puts a bad taste in my mouth. Without question, WrestleMania Saturday was better than WrestleMania Sunday. You can't tell me that there wasn't some kind of issue here, because the main event last year, which was Roman Reigns, Edge, and Bryan Danielson, that was a phenomenal freaking match. And we saw the Usos interfere in that match and everything. We didn't even see that here. So I don't know. I feel like parts of that Lesnar match were definitely cut down. It sucked. Okay, injury or not, it sucked. If there is an injury, it puts a bad taste in people's mouth, and I feel like, I don't know. We'll see what happens though. Anyways, I'm sure we'll find out soon about if Roman really was hurt. We'll probably know tonight if he was, and we'll get more answers soon. Anyways, with that being said, that will end my review. Night 1 was much better than Night 2 without question. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. I'll talk to y'all soon.